Hey gang, Acts chapter 22 is where we are at. Happy Sunday morning. It's Sunday. We are in the final days of our journey through the book of Acts. Acts 22, where we left off yesterday, Paul has been arrested, and this is now the slow, steady drumbeat towards the death sentence for Paul that awaits him in Rome. Right now he's in Jerusalem, and he said, hey, can I speak to this angry mob, this crowd that wants to rip me to shreds? And the Roman soldiers go, yeah, we'll give you a second to talk. So Paul steps up, grabs the microphone, and he says, here's my story. Every one of us has a story of before Christ, how we met Christ, and after Christ. And if you look at Acts 22 and you see how Paul says, here's my story. I once was a loser, then Jesus showed up, washed me clean, and this is the difference God has made in my life. If you get those three pieces of the puzzle, then you know how to assemble your story so that when people ask you, why do you go to church? What is this about God that loves you? Then you just say, here's my story. Here's what I was like before God. Here's how I encountered Jesus. And here's the difference he's made. Why is it important to know your story? Because nobody can argue with your story. It's what happened to you personally. In a day and age where we have fake news and all truth is relative, nobody can argue with your story. So let's look at Paul's story and see if there's elements from it that will help us to write down our story so that we can share it in the days ahead with people who need the love of God. So Paul clears his throat. Verse 1, Acts 22, brothers and fathers, listens to my defense. And he says, I'm a Jew, so I'm one of you guys. I'm just a regular guy. I'm a Michigander, right? I'm just a regular dude. I was brought up in the city in Jerusalem. So he says, I'm very religious. I'm very devout. I'm one of you. I trained under Gamaliel, Yoda. Oh, Gamaliel I am, right? He's like the top dog Jew. And Paul says, I studied straight under him, right? So if you're a Spartan fan, he says, man, I bleed green and white. If you're a Michigan fan, he says, go blue is tattooed across my chest. Paul's trying to say, I'm one of you. So when you share your story with someone, you just say, I'm just a regular person. I'm not religious, right? I'm a regular person. I make mistakes just like everybody else. Then he even says in verse 4, I persecuted the followers of the way, all the way to their death. I arrested both men and women, throwing them into prison. So he says, I was horrible. Not only did I not go to church, I tried to burn down churches. I tried to cut people. That's Paul's story. Maybe that's your story. Your story may be, I ran so far away from God that drugs and alcohol and meaningless sex is how I filled the emptiness inside. Or maybe I ran so far from God that I thought that following all the rules and being morally upright is what would make me acceptable. Either extreme is an anti-gospel. So Paul says then in verse 6, he says, I was going to Damascus. I was going to go persecute and arrest some more Christians. And about noon, there was a big light from heaven that flashed around me. I fell to the ground and I heard a voice say, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Verse 8, who are you, Lord? I said, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. So two things. One, when you take sideswipes at church leaders and churches, sometimes people say stupid stuff on Facebook and social media. They're not hurting a church. They're not hurting me or a church leader. They're hurting Jesus. Because Jesus says, why are you persecuting me? And the second thing is, you can be a murderer, you can be a terrorist, you can have done rotten things in war, and Jesus still pursues you. Paul is the great persecutor and terrorist of the church, and even Jesus shows up. Now he has to blind him to get his attention, but no one can outrun the grace of God. Verse 9, Paul says, my companions saw the light. They did not understand the voice of him who was speaking to me. So Paul said, what shall I do, Lord? And Jesus said, get up, go to Damascus. So when Jesus tells you to do something, you listen to God, do what he says. And he went to Damascus, and a man named Ananias came. He was a devout observer of the law, highly respected by all the Jews living there, and he restored Saul's sight. And so Saul is saying, I was one of you guys. I met Jesus. I was blind. Now I see. And it was another Michigander who helped me understand the ways of God. Verse 14, then Ananias said to me, the God of our fathers has chosen you, Paul, to know his will and to see the righteous one and to hear words from his mouth. You will be his witness to all men of what you have seen and heard. And now what are you waiting for? Get up, be baptized, wash your sins away, calling on the name of Jesus. So Ananias says, Paul, welcome to God's family. You're now a Christ follower. What are you waiting for? Get baptized. And that's the final word to you. We talked about life before Jesus. Paul was horrible. That's your story. That's my story. Then how he met Jesus. Maybe it was through Life Church. Maybe it was through reading the Bible. For him, it was Jesus showing up. And now his life is radically altered. He has a whole new destiny and direction. Baptism is the benchmarker that separates the old from the new. Baptism is something that Paul can look at. And Ananias says, what are you waiting for? Get up, get baptized, right? Wash it all off. Let's go. And so if you have never been baptized as a follower of Christ at Life Church, man, we would love to celebrate your baptism. Special word to all the men, the women, the teenagers. We've got baptisms coming up on Sunday, July 15th at our Saginaw campus. We're shutting down all of our worship experiences for one big mega service together outside. Bring your lawn chairs. We're going to have the big tank out there. We're going to cheer as men, women, and teenagers share their story and get baptized. And then we're going to have some good barbecue. That's Sunday, July 15th. No kids ministries that day, just the whole church family outside together, celebrating God and hearing stories of life change. That's going to be incredible. And you know what else is going to be incredible? Tomorrow, Acts chapter 23. So giddy up, Buttercup. Read chapter 23. I'll see you here tomorrow, same time, same bat channel. The best is yet to come.